Now here with all the latest headlines, it's the ITV News.
COVID cases hit a new record high as the government urges caution ahead of New Year's Eve. The race to get people boosted intensifies, but ministers stick to issuing advice, not new restrictions.
Many people will know somebody who's caught this over the Christmas period. So do be cautious. Take a lateral flow test before you go out.
Also ahead, how the Christmas Day crossbow scare at Windsor Castle has sparked calls for a change in the law.
Oh, there we go.
English cricket in crisis after the humiliating Ashes defeat to Australia. And the 4-year-old boy who got the gift of life from his father this Christmas.
This is the ITV Evening News with James Mates.
Good evening. The UK has reported a record-breaking number of COVID infections as the struggle to contain the Omicron variant continues. Nearly 130,000 cases were confirmed in England and Wales alone, with data from Scotland and Northern Ireland yet to be released. Unlike the other UK nations, England isn't introducing new restrictions before New Year's Eve, with the government telling people to enjoy themselves but to do so cautiously. Our political reporter Shihab Khan has the latest.
This is what the ultimate power night out will be hoping to repeat on New Year's Eve this year. With the government saying there'll be no new restrictions in England for the rest of 2021, work is underway to welcome clubbers on Friday night. The co-owner says it's a huge relief and thinks it'll be safe enough for people to enjoy.
Now that they've announced that it's safe for us to carry on as normal, we're operating in our venues with all the government regulations in place. We passionately believe that it will be a safe environment for people to be in and have fun with their friends for New Year's Eve, see the end of a terrible year and hopefully see the beginning of a good, positive 2022.
There are, however, concerns. The latest data shows almost another 130,000 COVID cases have been recorded in England and Wales, up 30% on the previous week. More than 9,000 people were in hospital in England with COVID as of 8 a.m. this morning. That's up 38% on the week before. And the government has this message for those celebrating the new year.
Do be cautious. Take a lateral flow test before you go out. Go to well-ventilated areas. I've been to a couple of outdoor parties, actually. People have moved things to outside. So just be cautious, but, do try to enjoy yourself as well.
But with cases so high, most getting jabbed here today, we're talking about potentially scaling back their plans.
Normally, I'm out and about. But now, not really. I'm surely staying at home.
Well, we had planned to have a couple friends around, maybe 30, 40 people. Definitely won't be happening now. Probably more maybe 10 people of us.
A lot of our friends have already had some positive tests, so the people that we were planning to meet with probably won't be able to meet us anyway. So, also my wife's pregnant, so we're only having a small do.
Regardless, pressure is already mounting on the NHS during what is notoriously a rather difficult period of the year.
Well, there are three things going on at once. The NHS was already very busy before this latest Omicron variant came, busier than we've been at this time of year for a very long time. Secondly, we've now got a rising number of cases. But the third bit, which is also causing significant complications, is the fact that we've got large numbers of staff absences due to COVID-19.
As the festive period comes to an end, if the NHS starts to struggle, questions about the government's decisions will only grow louder.
Well, Shihab joins me now. Shihab, as you were suggesting in your report there, I guess the key thing that the government is going to be looking at is the numbers of people in hospital.
Absolutely. The way the NHS handles any rise in hospitalisation is what the metric that the government will be looking at to determine whether or not there should be any further restrictions. I've been speaking to doctors over the last few days or so. What they are saying is, as you heard in that piece, is it's not just about the increased number of cases, but it's also about colleagues becoming unwell or having to isolate, but also people coming into hospitals and coming in because they've fallen off a bike or they've hurt themselves and then testing positive and not knowing they've actually got COVID. Now, winter is always notoriously a difficult period for the NHS, and when you're treating patients for other things and it turns out they've got COVID, extra precautions need to be taken. It's more difficult to do. So it is a difficult period. Doctors around the country are saying, although they haven't felt the huge impact of this yet, it could be coming, and that's why the government is very clear in saying no restrictions yet, but that remains an open-ended question. It could be different coming into January. It depends what the data shows, so we'll have to wait and see.
Shihab, thanks very much indeed. The UK Health Security Agency has apologised after some families waited up to 5 days for PCR test results. A spokesperson said demand was at a record level and they were sorry to anyone that had to wait a little longer for their result. The United States has relaxed isolation rules from 10 days to 5 for asymptomatic Americans. Officials say it's following growing evidence that the people with COVID are most infectious in the 2 days before and 3 days after symptoms develop. And more than 100 British tourists have been denied entry into Austria because they'd not followed updated restrictions. Police at Innsbruck airport said many were probably caught out on Sunday by a new rule requiring a negative PCR test within the previous 48 hours. A review of the law on owning a crossbow has been ordered by the Home Secretary. Currently, anyone over 18 can buy one without a licence. The review comes after a man was arrested carrying a crossbow at Windsor Castle on Christmas Day. But a campaigner whose partner was killed with a crossbow told ITV News she's sad the government hasn't acted sooner. She spoke to Chloe Keedy.
Laura and Shane were busy planning their future when it was snatched away. In 2018, their next-door neighbour broke into their home and attacked them. His weapon was this crossbow. Laura, who was 5 months pregnant at the time, survived with serious injuries. Her unborn child's father did not.
Until then, I was completely unaware what a crossbow even was. Shane was taken away from so many people that he loved. He's never met his daughter. And obviously that's something that we have to still live with every day.
The Home Secretary's decision to launch a review into crossbow laws comes 3 days after an intruder was found armed with one inside the grounds of Windsor Castle. It happened a few hours before she welcomed her family for Christmas lunch. The suspect, who's 19, has now been detained under the Mental Health Act. But what happened here on Christmas Day has led to questions about why he was allowed to have a crossbow in the first place. Under current law, you don't need a licence to buy one, and a quick search online found plenty for sale.
As long as you're over the age of 18, or they're easily accessible. You can literally buy them from market stalls, from shops on the seafront, I've been told in some circumstances. So they are easily accessible.
Earlier this year, Laura started a petition calling for stricter laws around the sale and possession of crossbows. The Home Secretary's response in May was that the government had no plans to review them. But days after one made its way into the grounds of Windsor Castle, that seems to have changed.
Thankfully, that it didn't cause any harm. But that is what I have been trying to say to Priti Patel for 7 months, that they can and they do.
Until the law changes, Laura fears what happens to her family could happen again. Chloe Keedy, ITV News.
A teenager has been arrested and charged in connection with the death of a couple in West Lothian on Boxing Day. Dennis and Mary Fell were both aged 73 and have been described by neighbours as very caring. The 19-year-old is expected to appear in court on Wednesday. The NHS has released a new film as part of a government campaign highlighting the impact adult smokers have on young people in their lives. New figures suggest teenagers whose parents smoke are 4 times as likely to take up the habit. And the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, has said he is in favour of letting MPs bring their babies with them for parliamentary debates, as long as they're not disrupting proceedings. Labour MP Stella Creasy was censured in November for carrying her son Pip, then 3 months old, during a debate. sport, and England cricket captain Joe Root admitted his side have been completely outplayed by Australia after losing the Ashes in humiliating fashion. The tourists' batting collapsed once again, their final 6 wickets falling for just 37 runs on day 3 of the third test as Australia won by an innings and 14. Holding an unassailable 3-0 lead, Australian minds will now be turning to completing a whitewash. Here's Chris Scudder.
All over in little more than 11 days of cricket.
Oh, he's got him. There's the comeback.
Rarely have England lost the Ashes so quickly, even by their own dismal record down under. If nothing else, England were expected to at least make the Aussies bat again, but as the wickets tumbled, that looked a lost cause too.
He's got him.
Captain Joe Root lingered a while, but not for long.
Gone.
The rest surrendered meekly.
Well, there he is. He's got it. Oh, there we go.
England's sorry total of 68 all out was their lowest in Australia since 1904.
It's bitterly disappointing. It's gut-wrenching. It's everything you don't want from this stage of the tour. You know, but the reality is we've been outplayed.
The only hint of anything positive came from the bowlers only yesterday.
I think the way that the bowling attack, rallied and got us back into a position where we were back into this game, I think was credit to them, and I think the way that we caught in the last innings was good as well. So I think there are positives coming out of this, and as I say, I've got to give our boys credit for the way that they pushed back yesterday, but we have to find a way of scoring runs against this attack.
But it's not good enough. England have now lost 12 of the last 13 tests in Australia.
This has been the worst performance by England over the last sort of 20 to 30 years. They're not getting the runs on the board, and that is an area which Chris Silverwood needs to address very quickly, because if he doesn't in the next 2 test matches and they have similar results, then unfortunately the ECB may just make the decision for him, which it's not nice to see any player or coach being sacked from their job, but he's got 2 test matches to turn it around.
And at 3 down and 2 to play, just don't expect Australia to want anything less than another 5-0 series whitewash against the team they love to beat. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Football now, in Southampton survived playing with 10 men for more than 50 minutes as they drew 1-1 with Tottenham this afternoon. After taking the lead, Saints had Mohamed Salisu sent off for a second booking, with Harry Kane scoring the resulting penalty. Spurs had 2 second-half goals disallowed as the home side held on. West Ham came from a goal down to record a comfortable win against struggling Watford at Vicarage Road. The 4-1 victory ended a 5-match winless run for David Moyes' side. And Norwich will finish the year rooted to the bottom of the Premier League after they lost 3-0 at Crystal Palace. 3 first-half goals moved Palace into the top half of the table. And finally, the father who gave his son a life-changing gift this Christmas. 4-year-old Oliver Kitely has had regular dialysis treatment since being diagnosed with kidney failure. But after discovering they were a match, his dad donated one of his, giving Oliver a whole new lease on life. Yasmin Boddleby has been to meet them.
This is the first Christmas that Oliver's been able to play happily at home and hasn't needed to be in hospital hooked up to a machine.
Too fast.
Thanks to his dad, he's now full of energy.
What did Daddy give you?
My kidney.
Gave you a new kidney?
Yeah, and then Dad's got one more because I can't take it.
No, Daddy needs this other one, doesn't he?
Mummy's
And I
saving
need
her
this
kidney.
one to get me nice and strong.
This precious gift from his dad has ended a lifetime of dialysis. Since being diagnosed with renal failure as a baby, he's had to go to hospital 4 times a week.
We thought that he wasn't going to make it a few times, but he's a fighter. He's pulled through both times. So to get to this point and say that he's going to have a new lease of life was just incredible.
Hello, Dr. Mordy.
How are you, Oliver?
Good.
For the consultant who's known Oliver since birth, It's quite something to see him flourish.
I think this is one of the joys of doing the jobs that we do, is the huge improvement it makes on all their outlook, their ability to function and go to school and not have to come in for dialysis 3 or 4 times a week and all the other problems with that. So I think it's just a really amazing to see these improvements.
This Christmas is extra special for this family, and Oliver's delighted with all his presents. But you can't top the gift of life. Yasmin Bottleby, ITV News, Warwickshire.
I'll stay here.
Well, that's all for now. We're back at 10. Till then, goodbye.